Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day one of our World Teachers' Day conference. And just wishing you all a very happy World Teachers' Week. While you're coming in, I can see people already coming in and joining us on Zoom. Say hi in the chat. Tell us where you're joining us from today. Also, if you're joining us on Facebook and YouTube, please say hi in the comments. So I'm Jo Blackmore, and I'm part of the Teaching English team, and I'm joined today by Mary Rose Banaag. Hello there, Mary Rose.
Hello everyone. Hello, Joe, and everybody working with the British Council in this webinar. Happy World Teachers Day or World Teachers Month, as one of the speakers mentioned.
Month. Wow, yeah. Okay, excellent. So we've got lots of countries joining, ready to listen to your talk, Mary Rose. As usual, people from all over the world, amazing. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you here. We're about to start our second afternoon session today, which is digital storytelling and multimedia projects with Mary Rose Banaag. So we're about to get started, but just before we do that, I'm going to tell everybody watching a little bit about you, Mary Rose. So, Mary Rose Banaag is an experienced teacher from the Philippines with over 15 years' experience of training and development. She's taught both face-to-face and online and has worked extensively with business to business and business to consumer clients, crafting tailored training programs to meet their needs. So Mary Rose was mentored by Teaching English in 2024 and spoke at our Multimodal Classrooms webinar event in a panel discussion called How Do We Integrate Digital Tools? Okay, I'm sure it's going to be such an interesting webinar today. I'm going to hand over to you, Mary Rose. Just a quick reminder to everybody to write if you're joining us in Zoom, to write comments in the chat and any questions that you've got for Mary Rose in the Q&A. And we'll be back for the Q&A later. And I'll hand over to you, Mary Rose. Enjoy the webinar, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe. All right. Okay. So hello everyone, and again, happy World Teachers Day. And it's a joy to be with teachers from all around the world to explore digital storytelling and multimedia projects. So over the next 45 or 50 minutes or so, we'll look at what digital storytelling is and how it could support learning and, simple tools that you can use right away. All right. But I'd like to begin with a quick chat poll. And if we can go to the next page, please. All right. Okay, there you go. Now, type 1 if you're new to digital storytelling, or 2 if you've had some experience. Okay, so I see there 1 new to digital storytelling, 2, okay, 1 and then 2. So it's wonderful because I'm seeing a healthy mix of newcomers and experienced storytellers. All right. Okay, that's perfect. So we'll build shared language and trade practical ideas. All right. So here's our roadmap, so you'll know exactly where we're headed. Okay, so by the end of this session, you'll be able to recognize the 7 key elements of digital storytelling and see how Padlet, one of our digital tools, can help students plan and publish their stories. We'll also explore creation tools like Canva, for visuals and layout. And of course, explain how digital stories build language and communication skills. All right, so to make those elements more concrete, so let's quickly clarify the main types of digital stories we use in class. Okay, so you have the personal narrative, the historical documentary, and of course the content area tutorials. Okay, let's go to the next page so we can dive deeper. Now, so first we have the personal narrative. Personally, these are very ideal for elementary students because they get to talk about something they know very well, their own lives. And this type of story builds their confidence and helps them express themselves. So it develops their oral and written language skills in a very familiar context. And of course, it keeps the engagement high because it's personal and meaningful. So, for example, a student might share my favorite holiday or the day I got my pet. All right. Next page, please. And next, we have the historical documentaries. This would work very well for upper elementary and middle school learners, because they're ready to start guided research. So it teaches them to find information, summarize key facts, and present them clearly. So it also connects beautifully with content areas like history or social studies. And for younger students, we can simplify this to classroom news reports about school events or local holidays. Next page, please. And finally, we have the content tutorials. This would work perfect for middle school learners because they push students to think critically. So they try to break down process into clear, teachable steps, just like a teacher would. And this type of story helps children or students rather understand concepts more deeply, and of course encourages peer learning, since they're essentially teaching others through their story. It's also great. It's a great fit for STEM and project-based learning. Let's say, for example, explaining how to plant a seed or how a volcano erupts. And for younger learners, we keep the process simple and add lots of visuals to make it engaging. Okay, let's go to the next page. So when you're selecting the type of digital story, by the way, you remember to consider your student's age and language level because each one nurtures a different skill set. So it helps students grow as storytellers and communicators. Okay. All right. So we've seen all three types. So let's watch an example of a personal narrative in action. So you have here a 2-minute digital story created for classroom use. And as you watch, I'd like you to focus on what stands out the most. So it could be the visuals, the narration, or how the message connects emotionally. All right? Okay, let's watch it together. It's
Hi, I'm Mia. I love our park, but lately it looks really sad. There are plastics everywhere. I asked myself, can one girl really make a difference? I grabbed the bottles, washed them, cut them, and painted them with my favorite colors. It was hard but fun. Soon I had a whole rainbow of flower pots. My boring park turned into a garden full of color and life. Then something amazing happened. My neighbors joined me. Together, we turned trash into treasure. And guess what? You can do it too. Small actions make a big change. Let's reuse, recycle, and reimagine together.
All right. Okay, there you go. So I hope you were able to watch it or were able to listen to it. And now that we've watched the story, let's take a moment to reflect. All right. Please share in the chat again. What emotion did you feel most while watching? So maybe you can just type one word, maybe hope, sadness, determination. Okay, I can see here, Jomer mentioned fun. Anastasia mentioned gratitude, nostalgia, positivity, resilience, enjoying the music. Yes, it's very inspiring. So there's a lot of words actually that you've shared here. So positive feelings. Okay, there you go. Inspiration. Okay, there you go. So mixed emotions. And you've actually just experienced, what your students might feel when they watch or create their own digital stories. Now, let's take a look at the framework behind what makes stories like this so powerful. So can we go to the next page? All right, so we've seen three types of digital stories, okay, but no matter what you choose, there's always a secret to a great story. So it's just like cooking, you can choose different dishes, but you still need the right ingredients. And the first we have here, the very first ingredient of a powerful digital story is point of view. All right, so point of view simply means whose eyes are we looking through. So in Mia's story, we see everything through her eyes. So we feel her sadness when she finds bottles scattered in the park, and her hope when she starts turning them into something beautiful. Now, this perspective helps students or connect emotionally because, we experience the world the way she does. So how is this related, or how can we connect this to language learning? This teaches students how to write, well, number one, in the first person, okay, using pronouns like I and my. And aside from that, they get to write with empathy and personal feeling. So both of this, it strengthens their voice and emotional vocabulary. So now that we've seen how perspective shapes emotion, so let's explore another ingredient. This is what keeps the story moving forward. Okay, and this is the dramatic question, as if we say. Why dramatic question? Because it's what keeps us watching. And every good story makes us wonder something. So that sense of curiosity, what keeps the audience engaged from start to finish. So in Mia's story, the question is, can one kid and a few magic bottles really make a difference? So it pulls us in. We want to find out how she'll do it and whether her efforts will actually change anything. So, connecting it to language learning, this element helps students practice forming questions and using suspense language. Phrases like, what happens next? Will she succeed? Or how will it end? So, it makes these structures their writing and speaking more dynamic and, of course, emotionally engaging. So once we've caught our audience curiosity, we need to make them feel something. That brings us to the next key ingredients, which is emotional content. So I'm sure you agree with me. Emotions are what makes the stories stick. Facts fade. Okay, but feelings stays with us long after the story ends. Yes, it makes children think, as one of you mentioned in the chat box. In the story of Mia, we feel her sadness when the park is messy, and her excitement as she paints and transforms the bottles. and then her joy when her neighbor starts to join in. So these emotional shifts make the story memorable and meaningful. All right. And in the classroom, emotional storytelling helps students expand their vocabulary for feelings and, of course, descriptive adjectives like what you've shared, joyful, frustrated, hopeful, proud, those words that you shared on the chat box. Now, so far we've seen how curiosity draws the audience, and the emotion that makes the story resonate with us. So let's look at how voice brings it all together. Next slide, please. So once you've added or we've added emotion, the next question is, how do we make the story sound authentic? And this is where the element of voice and soundtrack come in. It has a very jazzy soundtrack, right? I'm sure some of you were dancing while you were listening to the music. Now, in Mia's story, there's very little dialogue, yet her feelings are clear. Her actions, her tone, her narration actually give her a voice. So for students, using their own voice make their stories very real. So it helps them express who they are, and of course, the most important thing is it builds confidence in speaking. And in English language learning, practicing with their own voice helps students develop fluency, rhythm, and of course, confidence. It kind of reminds them that their personal way of speaking is powerful and meaningful, and that their voice really matter. Now, the soundtrack, I have to admit, the soundtrack was one of my favorite because it sets the emotion and the pace of a story. So in Mia's story, we hear, a gentle, melancholic music when she felt sad, and then suddenly a cheerful, upbeat tune as her flowers bloom at the end. Those shifts in sound create ambiance or atmosphere. So they make the visuals really come alive. For language learners, sound adds meaning because it helps them connect mood to message. And, it can even make pronunciation and rhythm practice more natural. When students choose or create soundtracks, maybe they can create their own soundtrack. I think a while ago you listened to Miss Wu's webinar, the tune AI. Okay, so that would be a good way to incorporate it in making their own soundtrack. In other words, they're not just decorating their stories, they're actually shaping how the audience feels. All right, so now that we've added sound and emotion, another key ingredient, something every storyteller and every teacher appreciates, keeping it concise. So this is where economy and pacing comes in. So economy means keeping your story focused. So no fluff, no extras, just what's essential. In Mia's stories, it's really short. Okay, but every scene has a purpose. Bottles, picking up bottles, painting, planting, transformation. Nothing feels wasted. That's what economy is. Using only what's needed to make meaning clear. And for students, uh, this actually teaches summarizing and editing, writing short but strong sentences and avoiding redundancy. It helps them see that clarity is more powerful than length. And this is where it becomes less really can be more. Yes, economizing your story saves time and kicks out the boredom. Thank you so much, Oluwason. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. All right. Pacing, again, it's all about the timing, how the story moves and keeps the audience engaged. So in Mia's story, it starts slowly, and as she looks at the trash, it speeds up when she collects it, washes and paints, and then slows down again at the happy resolution. that rhythm keeps us watching until the very end. So for English learners, pacing connects directly to sentence length, strength, and timing. So they can vary their tone and rhythm, to slow down for reflection, speed up for action, and use language to hold attention. All right, next page, please. So now we've unpacked the 7 elements that make stories powerful. Let's shift the lens and look at what digital storytelling actually does for language learning. Because beyond creativity and technology, this is really where the magic happens. Um, Digital storytelling, it's not just a creative project. It's actually a full language workout. So when students plan, write, narrate, and share their stories, they're naturally practicing wide range of language skills. So starting with vocabulary and context. They describe real things, emotions, and actions. And, students, they just don't memorize words. They choose words for meaning, tone, and impact. Another one, next please, the speaking skills. Okay? Because improving fluency and pronunciation as they narrate or record their stories. And according to Nina, she said it's a great way to improve vocabulary as well as keeping students engaged. Yes, that's very true. And now for writing, next please. Writing structure, they organize their ideas clearly with beginning, middle, and an end. And at the same time, of course, if you're an English teacher, there's the grammar in action using narrative tenses, sentence connectors, and transitions, meaningful transitions. And finally, of course, the listening skills, because when they watch, they analyze, and of course, they respond to their classmate's story. All right, so these are exactly the skills that our students use beyond the classroom. This is what we want them to learn, in presentations, interviews, reports, and of course, daily communication. So when we teach digital storytelling, we're not only nurturing creativity, we're actually helping our students become confident, authentic communications in the real world. Yes, Hanan said it develops most skills. All right, so some audience participation here. Now type in the chat, which one of these elements would your students find easiest to try first? Easiest. All, okay. Voice, okay, point of view. And then the voice, all of, okay, for most of you, writing skills, soundtrack, okay, and point of view. Okay, so there you go. So there's the easiest one and of course the challenging one. Okay. Great insights. Thank you. Now let's see how digital tools can turn these ideas into multimodal stories. So this is where the magic happens. Okay, so Padlet personally, it's my go-to platform for digital storytelling, especially when I'm having classes with my online students as well. Because it makes the whole process from brainstorming to publishing very simple and very visual. So in minutes, students can drag photos, short videos, voice notes, and links from any device. So stories become fully multimodal. And of course, it's always in using digital tools, always check the school guidelines for safe online use. Now, again, just a reminder, before using any online tools that require sign up, make sure that the relevant people, learners, parents, and school communities know you're using this tool, and encourage students not to share any personally identifiable data while using them. Some tools may collect data and some may have age restrictions. So find out about what you can before using each tool. All right, so Padlet, again, several advantages. Well, number one, it enhances interactive engagement. So the students really participate actively and collaborate in real time. And second, again, it's visual organization, aids in making information more accessible and, of course, easier to follow. Padlet also promotes collaborative learning, fostering teamwork and peer-to-peer interaction. And finally, it provides immediate feedback, enabling quick learning and improvement. So if you're on the phone, this will still be clear. Let's switch to a quick example so you can picture how this works with your learners. So some ideas and activities that you can do for young to middle school learners. Now, on this slide, you can see a simple gallery called My Weekend Adventure. Very simple. Now, this activity works very well for elementary learners because it turns writing into something concrete and visual. So you just need to follow, put up columns per student. And instead of a blank page, children start with picture, maybe a short clip or a quick voice note, and then add one or two clear sentences. This lowers the pressure and helps learners take part. Collaboration is part of the task, yes. And I think from experience, the children really enjoy leaving kind comments or reactions. And I turn that into purposeful speaking and listening. So, they get to read one classmate's card and give a kind comment and a useful suggestion. So, of course, with teacher moderation and privacy settings, because you can do it on the Padlet, there's a privacy settings where only the students involved could join. Okay, so the space stays safe and focused. Now, if you're short on time, sometimes we are, the next activity will give a similar storytelling impact, but it's in a more quick, low prep format. Students will enjoy this because it feels like a game. All right. It works as a fast exit ticket, kind of like a warm up to check sequencing and vocabulary. So this is called the 6-word story. And the rule is simple. Use exactly 6 words. Well, you can make it 7 or 8. Okay, but for now, I would use 6. So the limit pushes learners to choose precise verbs and clear nouns. So I usually model 2 examples, okay? And then give them 3 minutes for drafting. Now, for the early finishers, they can record a short voice note to read their line with good stress and rhythm. And for feedback, we use quick reactions and again, one kind comment. As a check for learning, I look for clear idea, correct word order, and at least one strong verb. I've included actually there on the instruction. So this micro task is fast, engaging, and of course, perfect for mixed ability groups. But wait, there's more. You can actually extend this activity. For writing, previous page, please. Can you go back to the previous page? Okay, there you go. Now, for writing, we're still on the 6-word story. This 6 words can become, a simple plan since you already have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so they can expand each part into 1 or 2 sentences and connect them using time words first, then, and finally. For speaking, still with the 6-word story, we can use the same idea. Well, the students can retell their story maybe for about 20 to 30 seconds. If the focus is you want them to have a practice on their pronunciation and natural flow. And if they're with their partners, partners listen and share one thing that worked well and one idea for improvement. Good to teach vocabulary and punctuation as well. Yes, Nagma mentioned it on the chat box. And the best part, since the 6-word story already has a beginning, a middle, and an end, it's actually a perfect seed for a longer digital story. So it once one that starts as a a quick creative spark, and then it grows into a complete writing or speaking task. Now, so after doing the 6-word story, we can take the same creative energy and move it into a new direction. So this time, we invite students to look more closely at the world around them, the things they use every day. All right, so there you go. So it's still a 6-word story, but this time with the question, what's in an object? Now, the idea here, again, it's still short and simple, but it actually helps students describe rather than narrate. So instead of telling a full story, they focus on the details, the color, the texture, the feeling, and the personality of an object. So it's a gentle shift from storytelling to descriptive writing. So here, I focused on adjectives. So students, they start using adjectives and sensory language, which makes their writing more vivid and expressive. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's still part of this is still part of the 6-word story, focusing on adjective. So why does this activity work well for middle school learners? Well, first, it teaches concise writing. Because when students only have 6 words, they really have to choose the best ones. And it trains them to write clearly and meaningfully. And second, of course, the focus is on adjective. It develops their use of adjectives. They need to describe things in detail. So they naturally start expanding their descriptive vocabulary. Okay, and third, it keeps learning concrete and very relatable. Writing about everyday objects makes it easier for students to imagine and express ideas. They can literally look at what they're describing. There's also a strong speaking element there, because when they explain their story in 1 minute, they practice speaking more fluently and confidently without feeling too much pressure. It's highly engaging, and students will see it as a fun storytelling challenge, not just another writing task. So overall, this short activity combines, again, so many skills: writing, vocabulary, imagination, speaking fluency. So all into one creative, enjoyable task that works well for this age group. Next slide, please. Now, if you see there on the second column, I actually have there a speaking guide, because this would actually support students like a short model or guide. It's called the 1 minute speaking guide. Okay, so it helps actually students organize their thoughts. If they have a model sentence, they can speak with confidence, even if they're still developing their English. The guide gives them clear sentence starters like my 6-word story is, or the adjective I use are. It reminds them to explain why they chose their words and how they want the listeners to feel. So these simple steps, the students can learn how to describe, explain, and of course reflect, all in 1 minute. So it's great for scaffolding, because it supports speaking structure and vocabulary without limiting creativity. So even shy learners will feel ready to speak with the guide. Okay, now that students have tried short creative tasks, so yes, it's getting to be more and more complicated and challenging. Uh, the Padlet, with the use of the Padlet, we can move further into a more structured storytelling. So this is one of my favorite actually, is the use of the story spine framework. All right. It's I don't know if you've heard about it, but this is what Pixar use. A simple but powerful tool that helps learners build longer, more coherent stories. This was developed by, just a quick background, Ken Adams, as a tool to help actors and writers build well-structured stories. And this was later on adapted by Rebecca Stokely, I think, who worked at Pixar. And if you watch, of course, I'm pretty sure you do, it soon became a staple of their creative process when they write Pixar stories. Okay, so what is the structure of the story spine framework? So familiar phrases like once upon a time and every day, until one day, and then you also have because of that, until finally, and ever since then. Now, these prompts guide the students through the natural flow of a story. So from setting and then conflict and then to resolution. So what's great about this framework is that it works for any age group or topic. You can use it for short paragraphs, digital storytelling projects, and even collaborative class stories. Perfect for language development because students practice time linkers, cause and effect language, and past tense verbs in context. So after doing shorter creative tasks on Padlet, the story spine helps them expand those ideas into full narratives and with a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So, so you can press play because there's a play button there. All right, there you go. All right, so here's what the story spine would look like in practice. Okay, so you have there the columns, and each column you see will represent one student. Their name on top, and under it are their posts that follow the story spine prompts. So you have once upon a time, every day, until one day, because of that, till finally, and ever since that day. So as students move down their column, they build their story step by step. So this helps them see the logical sequence of events and how one action would lead to another. So what's great about this setup is that everyone is working on the same Padlet. So it becomes a shared storytelling, oh, sorry, rather, a shared storytelling space. Students can read each other's stories, leave comments, and learn from different writing styles and ideas. It really supports language learning because, again, the time connectors, past tense verbs, cause and effect expressions in a creative visual way. So by the end, you can see how each student's story developed from start to finish, all within one collaborative board. All right, there you go. So you can quickly take a look. Okay, next slide, please. All right, we've talked about how digital storytelling strengthen all four skills, but one of the most enjoyable ways for students to extend this practice is by adding their own voices. So you can actually see their screenshot. They can record their own audio, turning their digital story into something that sounds like a mini podcast. Okay, so the simple step gives them a chance again to practice pronunciation, intonation, and expressive delivery. Of course, still making their story sound more personal and authentic. Because I think when learners hear their own voices telling a story, it kind of boosts their confidence and helps them notice how rhythm, emotion, and clarity shape communication. So just like in the real world, a real world speaking task. aside from recording their voice, next slide, please. They can also try using the AI speech tool. Okay. All they need to do is to post their completed story. So you would see their audio recorder and AI speech. And for AI, the Padlet's AI will actually automatically generate the audio for them. So they can hear how when AI reads their story, how it's read aloud, they start to notice the rhythm, the tone, the pacing. So they can hear how their words come to life and reflect on how language sounds when spoken naturally or with AI. Now, next slide, please. All right, now, to make this activity even more accessible, so you have their two screenshots side by side. Now, I like to turn the Padlet into a short slide presentation, and you can also export it as a PDF. So again, that way a student can keep a copy, whether they're working online, at home, or in class. So you just have to click on the three red dots there, the one with the red arrow. And once your Padlet is complete, you can just choose export. Okay, and then you can export it as a PDF or save as image, especially if you're working on the free tier of the Padlet, because a little bit minimal. So you have to change it from time to time. So you don't have to delete all the works of your student. You can export them as a PDF. It's great for sharing through learning platforms, like Google Classroom, Canvas, or even email. So you can even upload it to your school's shared drive, so the students can view the speaking guide and examples anytime. And if you prefer something visual, you take a screenshot, turn them into a slide presentation using PowerPoint or Google Slides. So again, you can send this as a digital copy for students, for their parents, okay? And it's more of like a reference, a guide they can revisit for structure and vocabulary ideas. So kind of like a portfolio for them. All right? So next slide, please. Padlet is wonderful on its own, but we can also level up, have other tools to make the final story come alive. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with Canva, and it's one of the easiest tools actually for creating student videos. Okay, and yes, you can also have them in free tier. All right, so next slide, please. So what's great about Canva, because you just have a drag and drop feature, making it simple for anyone to build a video. So no editing skills needed. So they just pick a template, drag their photos, clips or icons, and drop text or music right on top. So they offer also free on the free tier. So next slide, please. So again, using any online tools, please make sure that you find out what you can use about each tool before using it. So everything happens on one screen. With the Canva, it feels intuitive and fast. So you can even add transitions, voiceover, and background sound in minutes. Okay. So it's perfect for classroom storytelling. This is where if you were watching the previous webinar a while ago, Miss Wu shared a lot of AI tools, okay, which you can actually incorporate when you're doing digital storytelling. So again, focus on creativity and meaning, not on technical editing. And here's something important to remember. Now, even one photo with 20 seconds of voice is already a digital story. It doesn't have to be long or complex. What matters is that students express meaning through words, sound, and of course, visuals. So with the help of Padlet, Canva, and I think you saw their ScreenPal, other digital tools, students can turn their written stories into multimedia creations that are personal, expressive, and ready to share. Next slide, please. All right, just some practical tips to make digital storytelling with Padlet run smoothly in your classroom. Now, encourage students, to give peer feedback. I usually like to use the 2 stars in Wish. So 2 positive comments and 1 suggestion. So it's a simple way to keep feedback kind, specific, and constructive. Afterwards, again, export to Padlet to save your class stories. This helps you archive the work or include it again in students' portfolio. Now, for teachers who wants to explore beyond Padlet, again, there are so many free tools that pair beautifully. Well, you have Canva, Flip, if you've heard about it, for recording quick reflections or story responses, Audacity for editing longer audio projects or voiceover. So Padlet works perfectly with this. So you pre-write your ideas in Padlet, create the media in another digital tool, and then showcase the final product back in Padlet. And if technology feels challenging, start small. So use just one tool at a time. You can rely on templates, already made examples. And I like to actually pair a tech savvy student with one who needs extra support, because they can complement each other. So keep for first project, you keep it short, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, just to build comfort and confidence. The key message here is very simple. Start simple, celebrate progress, and grow from there. Again, even a 20-second video clip or a single image with narration is already a digital story. Meaningful, creative, and achievable for every learner. Next slide, please. All right. And as we close, I'll leave you with a line that beautifully capture what digital storytelling is all about. Maybe stories are data with the soul, from the author Brené Brown. Our last slide, please. Okay, and with that, I'd like to end on this question. Okay, so what story will you invite your students to tell? So it's more of like a reflective questions for everybody. Thank you so much for being part of this session. Now I'd like to hear from all of you. So I think you can find me on LinkedIn, okay? And if you have any questions, type it on the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mary Rose. That was super interesting. And from looking at everybody's comments there in the chat, people got a lot out of that and really enjoyed it. We've had some questions, some great questions for you in the Q&A. So let's just go to our first one. Well, there was 2 questions which I thought were quite linked, and it was about people who are wondering, can they still use this kind of digital storytelling if they have limited access to these digital tools, to internet and computer? Derabe asked, what about access to internet and computer materials? And Olu Wasun in Zoom said, can you kindly share how teachers can use and maintain high quality digital storytelling on a low budget or with limited tech resources? Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, actually, again, Google Slides would be great for starters, okay, because you don't need to be very technical about it. Padlet works so well on the phone not just on the computer. If internet connection would be a problem, what I can suggest is, well, maybe you can give it as a homework, and then kind of like combine digital tools and creativity. So I actually do, I ask students to create a real storyboard. Okay, especially those who are very creative with drawing, they can actually use that. Get ideas from AI. There you go. And then transform it into something visual, like a real storyboard. Okay. Or the other way around. Okay. First, they have a storyboard. Okay. They can present, and how can they put it on a digital tool? You have Google Slides, PowerPoint. Okay. What else? Phones, okay, phone apps that are readily available. So there are just many out there, actually. So these are
Okay.
just some I can share with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mary Rose. Actually, that was interesting. You just were saying about, creating an actual storyboard with your own images. That was a question from John Roberts said, could we import our own images? So can you create your own images and then import them into the digital tool rather than necessarily getting AI to create the images for you?
Oh, yes, definitely. And in fact, the examples I gave actually on the Padlet were personal photos, you know. If you see a picture of a dog, that was my dog. So you can do that. You can do real pictures, something that really captured moments. This would actually even be more meaningful
Mm,
for and one of the if you notice also in one of the in the Padlet there, some of them were actually hand drawn photos or images. Okay, and then I just took a picture and then transformed them into something digital. So the possibilities are actually endless. If you're not very much adapted to getting images from AI, you can draw, you can use your own photos. Okay, even stick figures actually can become interesting.
okay, excellent. So lots of possibilities there, just depending on your own creativity and imagination.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we've got a question from Sume saying, can young learners use these digital storytelling apps, and from what age do you think?
For the Padlet, okay, I think it's one of the kid-friendly, very student-friendly digital tools that I've actually tried. And then what's good about that, because it can give, you can go one step up. Elementary students, actually, the one that I've given as young as 9, okay, because I think kids today, they're automatic. Okay, you give them something, and it's there already. But for that specific example, that would be good for 9 or 10 years old. But of course, there needs to be always the guidance of the parents
Mm,
and their teachers.
okay, yes, of course, that's super important. Okay, Gehan had a question about would digital storytelling be a tool to improve and teach speaking, and
I'm
how?
sorry.
Would digital storytelling be a tool to improve and teach speaking, and
Oh, yeah.
how?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so with speaking, um in one of the slides I've actually shown, okay, aside from the writing that they do, the 6-word story, there's actually a guide there that the students will explain why did they use this, what made them use this picture, okay, and then there's a guide. So it actually can improve their confidence when they're speaking. And what's good about that is that, well, some students are shy to speak, okay, so they can actually record that. Okay, and what I do from my own experience, so when the recordings are there already, I listen to it, okay, and then give them actually feedback. I don't post the feedback on the Padlet, but I talk to the students and see how they can improve their speaking. It's because I noticed I don't know if you would agree with me or everybody would agree with me. Most kids would like to talk more on the digital tool rather than speaking in public. But of course, we want them to improve on both. Okay, to improve their pronunciation, their intonation, their fluency
Mhm.
when they're speaking.
Okay, great. Lots of questions. We've got time for a few more, I think. Don't have a name for the person asking this question, but here's the question. Would you recommend this for SEN students and all of the SEN students would like listening or watching the story. Not all of them could make them. Would pair work help?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Pair work would really help, even a group project actually. Okay. Like what I mentioned a while ago, pair somebody who's very tech savvy with somebody who needs a little bit challenged with digital tool, or this can actually be made into a group project. And then they can just present everything on the digital tool or on the Padlet. It's actually kind of like giving the students the freedom to what digital tool they want to use, whatever they're comfortable with. Okay, now the Padlet is actually just a tool where everybody would just showcase their presentation. And if they cannot use a digital tool, again, they can present it live, or probably do a comic or a comic board or role play. Okay, that would be, so it's more of like complementing everything, okay, and making it into something really multimedia or multimodal.
Okay, excellent. Okay, great answer. Thank you. Just a few more, maybe we've got Samir says, to what extent do you believe that stories can foster critical thinking skills in our students?
Okay. How can they foster critical thinking? Well, number one, especially if they are using a type of digital story. So because we have the content, okay, we have the historical documentaries, we also have personal narratives. Okay, so personal narratives are actually what's very common because it's from experience. Now, critical thinking can come there when they're analyzing data, history, social studies. Okay, especially if your subject is social studies, and then they're using digital stories, because it actually helps them comment, analyze, give their own opinions. This was actually what makes them or exercise their critical thinking skills.
Okay, great. Have we got time for one last question? Okay, I had a question from Rashna in Facebook. How is digital storytelling linked to socio-emotional learning?
Oh, okay. Well, if you see, again, going back to the elements of digital storytelling, okay, like any story, we want something very relatable, the emotional content, okay, that a student, okay, will include when they use digital stories. Let's say, for example, my first pet, okay, or my first football goal. All right. How did I feel? Okay. What is that feeling that I felt when I made my first goal, and what made me make that first goal? Okay. It actually kind of like ignite all the emotions, okay, and transfer it into something written or something visual. So I think that's actually how digital stories help you and with emotions.
Yeah, and that's what you explained at the beginning, wasn't it? Just how important that emotional content is as one of the
Yeah,
keys to
exactly.
telling a good story.
Exactly. Because
Yeah,
we every story, you know how sometimes you have this story and you don't know why it's your favorite, but only to find out that you can connect to it
yeah,
emotionally. So
yeah.
that's what makes it very memorable.
Yeah, memorable, so important. Okay, sadly, we're out of time, Mary Rose. It was so interesting, such a great talk today. Thanks so much to you for joining us. Thanks to our moderators, Sangeeta and Mel on Zoom, Wayam and Marcus in Facebook. And that brings us to the end of day one of our World Teachers' Day conference. But don't worry, we're back tomorrow and we're back on Saturday with lots more sessions. So you can see that just shared on the slide there on your screen. So tomorrow morning, we're starting at 10 a.m. UK time with multilingual approaches in the language classroom. That's going to be a great panel discussion with a fantastic group of expert educators. And then in the afternoon sessions, we'll be focusing on 21st century skills. So please do come back and join us then. And remember that you need to register separately for each day of the conference. So if you haven't done that already to register for tomorrow's sessions, then you can do that from our website. So we look forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow. Thanks again, Mary Rose.